Thank you for joining us here today at the KDOT Public Transit Workshop. Today we're going to talk about our Office of Public Transit, who's involved in what, and all the programs that are made available, specifically the 5310 and 5311 programs. We're also going to talk about some state funding that's made available. We're going to go through our Black Cat application process and guide you through the process to applying for a grant. We're going to talk about our review process here at KDOT and then the timeline for funding. To introduce our Office of Public Transit, I am Corey Davis, the Comprehensive Transportation Planning Manager. Mike Spatafor is the State Public Transportation Manager. We have Scott Lean, who is our Drug and Alcohol Program Manager and Program Consultant, and Kelly Broxman, our Grants and Fiscal Coordinator. We also have Renee Hart, who's a multimodal planner. So any time you need anything from our office, these are the contacts to be made. So I want to describe what we do. Overall funding administration. We have federal and state dollars to administer to transit operators statewide, both in the urban and rural capacity. That's operating dollars, capital dollars, and administration dollars. And I'll get into more details of what these funding pots mean in relation to the specific program. We're also involved in long-range planning. Upcoming in the next few months, we're going to be talking about coordinated plan updates. This is something that hasn't been updated since 2007. We're going to take our existing regional business model and bring the 5310 providers and our human service providers into the loop and try to identify strategies for additional coordination among providers in the state. Ultimately looking to advance what we've done in the past and continue along our business model of coordinating between providers and of transit and human service providers. Another long-range planning we've endured was the statewide business model. This was focused on the general public transit providers, our 5311 providers, where we looked at opportunities to form regional routes and hire mobility managers and implement new governance structures to make all this come to fruition. We've been lucky to have mobility managers hired in 3 separate CTDs, and we are seeing the successes of those people and those positions as they are further implemented. Ultimately, what we're looking for in this business model is more effective and efficient transit services with the addition of resources made available by T-Works and the additional $5 million made available through that program. In addition to the statewide business model and coordinated plans, we're also going to be doing in the future asset management and safety planning. These are federal requirements where we are tasked at looking at what assets are out there, whether it's capital, our vehicle fleets, or facilities. We have to look at a wholesome picture of the entire state and get a better understanding of our assets so we can plan for future expenditures. Along with that is a safety plan, FTA mandate and requirement to look more intently on safety and to make sure the decisions and administration of funding we are acting upon and making the appropriate decisions. Also in a few years we're going to be looking to implement an emergency action plan, whether that looks like a disaster plan or flood relief. We're looking at opportunities to utilize our transit providers in these emergency situations to either assist neighboring communities or have other entities assist you in the time of an emergency. So that's something we'll be looking forward to, likely in the fiscal year 2018, to push that forward, and you'll be hearing more of that in the future. A little bit more of what we do is reporting. As our agencies report to us, we must report to FTA. This is NTD data, National Transit Database. Any funding that we distribute, we must report on it, whether it's operational statistics or general funding statistics. But we must report not only to FTA, but also to our legislature. We must show that the additional dollars made available to the state of Kansas through T-Works is proving to be benefiting transit and making improvements to what we're doing. And fortunately, we've been able to see that in the first several years of having that additional funding. In addition to that reporting, we also have grant management with FTA. That's a crucial part of what we do here, is to manage our grants and manage our funds to make sure they're made available to the appropriate transportation providers, and make sure we are doing all the work necessary in our office to make that money available. I want to talk about funding opportunities through our KDOT programs. Our 5310 program is our enhanced mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. Our 5311 is our general public transportation, and those are both operating and capital grants made available, and I'll dive a little deeper into those here shortly. We also have our statewide business model, which includes funding for mobility management, regional routes, and coordinated dispatch. Vehicles, I'll walk through the vehicle opportunities here in a few slides and discuss which vehicles are made available through our programs. And we also have other pots of funding, whether it be for facilities, transit planning, or additional technology that needs to be made available to our providers. Dive a little deeper into the 5310 program here to identify what it is and what we expect to see out of this program. The intent of this program is to serve the elderly and disabled. It's a very capital-based program, which means that it's based around getting that asset, that vehicle, to these agencies so they can serve their clientele. Ultimately, it's the idea of the program is to expand transportation mobility. It's getting people where they need to go, whether it's an area agency on aging or a senior center. It's assisting those that are elderly or disabled get to the resources they need to get to. So the funding identification for this program, it's a reimbursement-based program. Federal funding for capital is 80% federal, 20% local. So being a part of this program and acquiring that asset, your agency would only be required to cover that 20% local match. So in addition to the federal funding and the capital assets made available, we also have state funding, and this is operational funds at a 70% state split and a 30% local split. And this funding is broken up by a formula. There's $356,000 made available annually through T-Works. And if you have 10 or more KDOT vehicles, you receive $10,000. If you have less than 10 KDOT vehicles, you receive $5,000. And this is an annual allotment of operating funds. So ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, this is a very capital-based program, and the intent is to get that vehicle to these agencies to serve their clientele, and the requirements for this program are less intense and serve those elderly and disabled people. Moving on, we will talk about the 5311 program, which is our general public transportation program. This is the most utilized funding program in our state and provides millions of rides annually. The intent of the program is to serve the general public. It's to get people where they need to go within a community or outside of their community. Its intent is to get people to medical, shopping, doctor, anywhere the potential transit user would have interest in going. The intent is to provide that funding for the operating and capital costs, whether it be a demand response service where the rider would call and schedule a ride at any time during the day, or it could be a fixed route service where we have routes operating throughout a community and the user is required to understand those routes and get on the bus at a designated stop. In addition to fixed route service, there's also a requirement for ADA paratransit service. If you are operating a fixed route service, you must have ADA paratransit to serve those that are unable to utilize the fixed route service. Funding for the 5311 program, also reimbursement based. The operating funds, which is your fuel, your maintenance, your drivers, those are allocated at a 50% federal share, a 20% state share, and a 30% local share. In Kansas, we are fortunate to have, because of T-Works, dollars allocated to the operation of 5311 programs. In many states, you will not see that 20% state share. So it's something we're very proud to be able to continue to allocate to our transit providers and ease the burden Also available in the 5311 program are administration funds. These are your costs for your transit personnel, your transit manager, any computer supplies, or any costs that are incurred that are required to administer the funds. And that's split as an 80% federal share and a local 20%. This is something that we wanted to hit home with on throughout the state on these workshops and on this webinar. We want to make sure providers are aware that they can apply for these administration funds. In the past, it was a 10% of your operating budget allocation of administration funds. We've decided to open that up to a true application of funds. So you can apply to whatever is necessary to administer that program. Also made available are capital funds. Similar to the 5310 program, these are an 80%, 20% split. So if you're acquiring a vehicle, the federal dollars cover 80% of the cost, and your local agency has to cover that 20%. Just to talk about the reimbursable costs under this program, under both of these programs. Operating, you have advertising, your vehicle insurance, personnel, mechanic, fuel, maintenance, anything that is a cost that's associated with operating those vehicles that you have as a part of the program. Admin, your transit manager's time, your office supplies, computers, anything that's required and directly related to the administration of this program. And this is for the 5311 program only. 5310s are not eligible to apply for this administration dollars. I'm going to discuss our statewide business model here briefly. We spent 2.5 years going across the state to identify strategies for more effective and efficient transit usage. We met with each of our regions to discuss what made sense for our providers and for the stakeholders and transit users in the region. What we came up with was 3 main strategies. One being mobility management, which I discussed briefly earlier. And this is a program where we have offered to fund the first year of a mobility manager in a region at 100%. Moving forward after that, it's an 80-20 split. So it's an opportunity with a small amount of local dollars split amongst several agencies to leverage those additional resources and have that mobility manager in place. And the role of that mobility manager is to advance additional strategies and to identify new strategies to work with not only the transit providers in the region, but also the transit users, helping them get from place to place and helping all the transit providers understand the transit service provision at a regional level. So it's that additional resource to each CTD to take planned efforts and planned strategies and move them forward and make them operational. We're very excited to have 2 rural mobility managers in Kansas, and we're already seeing the positive effects of their position, and we look to share the good news as successes come out of this mobility management program. We look to share those with other regions and hopefully identify those local matching funds and the interest to implement this statewide, with the ultimate goal of having a mobility management network where our mobility manager talking and understanding at a statewide level what's happening and continuing to share information and have those mobility management type discussions talking about service provision and the end user and how to make it better at a statewide and regional level. Coordinated dispatch was identified in this business model as something that we needed to advance and push forward. And we have successfully installed and implemented Reveal in 6 of our 10 regions. KDOT, through the passage of TWorks, is able to pay for that at 100% for the implementation in the first year. So this is a technological advancement that allows efficient and effective scheduling and dispatching, and is a major time saver and overall operational efficiency. We look to not only have this implemented in the 6 agencies, but we look for other agencies in the region to partner with these agencies that already have the dispatch software, so where we can have a region-wide dispatch operation, so we can identify efficiencies at a regional level and have that communication and understanding of where everybody's going. The combination of the coordinated dispatch partnerships between agencies and the mobility management structure, we think can bring great efficiencies and great operational service provision strategies to continue to advance transit statewide. And ultimately, we're looking for that enhanced coordination, discussion between providers, and utilizing this as an opportunity to, for example, not have 3 buses going from the Southwest region to Wichita, but if we're talking, we can have 1 bus with 3 people, and have that opportunity for those vehicles that aren't making the trip to be providing local service. So there's an opportunity for this out there, and we've already seen it, but we're trying to put tools in place with this coordinated dispatch and mobility management to make it much more effective. Another strategy in the business model was regional routes. A lot of times, as I mentioned, we have these long distance trips that we're making on a consistent basis. So if we can designate them as a regional route and market them, we can see increased ridership, and we can see increased partnership between agencies. With regional routes, the state and KDOT through T-Works is able to assist a region in purchasing that asset. So if a regional route is designated and becomes operational, KDOT will, along with the federal funding, will pay for that vehicle at 100%. So if we can make that regional route come to fruition and make it operational, we are able to purchase that vehicle at 100%. So no cost to the locals. So really we're looking for a partnership amongst agencies and continue to advance these regional routes, many which have been identified in our business model, to make those logical and efficient connections. So ultimately, with our statewide business model, we've identified these strategies and we've identified funding to make them come to fruition. So we appreciate continued interest and continued discussion at CTD meetings to understand how these strategies can come to life in your region and how to continue to move forward, because we are seeing successes in other parts of the state. I've mentioned the CTD several times. That is a coordinated transit district. Here is how the state is defined as far as regions and coordinated transit districts. These were identified in our regional business model as the appropriate subset of counties in each region based on the travel patterns and trip demand in each region. So what is the CTD's purpose? Ultimately is to enhance coordination amongst providers and create that opportunity for communication between different providers. It's also a forum for KDOT policy and planning updates. It's a time for both transit providers, transit stakeholders, and KDOT to continue to come to the table and discuss how we can improve upon what we do. And ultimately, it's required by statute. The funding for the 5311 program goes through what is called a CTD administrator, and all 5311 operating and admin dollars have to flow through that administrator as required by statute. Ultimately, it's that coordination that we're looking for to continue to provide that opportunity for communication between transit providers and allow potential new transit providers to understand what the CTD is and what transit and how transit works in Kansas. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk about vehicles and what vehicles are made available. You see 3 vehicles here, and we have multiple options of each. The Ford Transit, you'll see on the left side of your screen, is a relatively new vehicle being made available to our providers. We have this vehicle both in, as you see pictured, and we have it as a ramp accessible or a lift accessible vehicle. So we have options there, and the real intent for providing this as an option is we have the minivan and the cutaway, which you see are pictured, But we're looking for more of a long distance based vehicle and something not as big as a Cutaway, but that can haul more people than the minivan. So discussing the minivan, that is a ramp accessible minivan. We no longer have the ability to provide minivans without ramps as a part of the program due to Buy America requirements. So that ramp minivan is made available along with the Cutaway. There's our 14 to 20 passenger vehicles. I typically utilized on our fixed route services or our local services, and something that gives you an option to have that larger vehicle. Any more information on these vehicles can be found online at the link listed at the bottom of the screen, and you'll see our specifications for each and exactly how these are designed to be built for transit usage. Moving forward, we're going to get into the Black Cat application process. Mike Spatafor has spent some time streamlining this process, so we're excited to be able to share this with you.
Thanks, Corey. So as most of you know from last year's application period, there was a great deal of download documents and attachments that had to come in. I think we counted about 26. We thought that was a little excessive, and we also know that you've been entering a lot of the data through Black Cat throughout the year. So we went in and chopped out things that you're already entering so that you don't have to re-enter them again. And I think you'll be happy when you see that the old application, as it is on the screen, now for this year looks like this. We've got it whittled down to 4 download documents and then the attachments that we need from you. We're hoping that this makes it a lot easier for you to fill out the application. I hope it takes less time for you to gather the information. And also, we wanted to make sure that we were not duplicating work by using the data that you already put into Black Cat on a monthly basis. So, if we can go through one right here. I've got the blank forms open now. As you see, there are 7 on the sheet, the screen, that you'll see. The first 4 are the ones that we're most focused on. And then numbers 5, 6, and 7 are additional items that'll help you fill out a complete application, but they're not going to be required of everyone. It'll be dependent on which program you're in. So I just wanted to go into each one and show you the main page of each so that you know what we're going to be looking for. For number 1, general information. So you'll see that the application paperwork is identical regardless of whether you're a 5310 or a 5311 provider. It's the same set of papers, so you won't see multiple different application packages for your program. If you are both a 5310 and a 5311 provider, you'll just copy and paste over one set into another project. So you'll have 2 projects. One will be your 10 program, one will be your 11 program. And all of the questions that we used on this are the exact same questions as last year. We've only added 2 to this entire packet, so we think that you'll be able to use the information that you input last year to fill these out rather quickly. Document number 2 is your service provisions page. This is where we're looking for your hard numbers, looking for a description of the type of service that you provide, whether it's a demand response or a fixed route, open to the general public, etc. These are all, again, the same questions we asked last year. We just put them all into service provisions category so that we can get them all in the same place. This is the part where we also ask you to identify your trip generators. These can be places that your riders go to often. Many areas find that doctor's offices, libraries, grocery stores, places like that tend to be their big trip generators. And finally, tell us a little bit about the service that you provide. We don't expect anyone to run 24/7. We do want to know what days of the week and between which hours you provide service in your region. The final section of part 2 is coordination, and we just want to make sure that you are not only providing the good services that you already do, but that you're also working with the other agencies in your region that could help you in either assisting more people or getting the word out that your service exists. We're hoping that we can do some crossover work here by asking you to call out provider name and service area of other providers in your region that provide transportation services. These might be things as simple as a taxi cab service, Uber or Lyft if you have those in your area, or other providers that you know of. There's no need for you to go outside of your region, your CTD region, with this list. We're just looking for some common agencies here. And then finally, we ask that you cover whether or not, if you're working with an MPO, and those of you in MPO regions know that WAMPO, MARC, MTPO, Lawrence Douglas County, Flint Hills, and St. Joe in Missouri are all the MPOs that work with Kansas. If you're working with an MPO, we need to make sure you're coordinating these efforts with them. If you're not in an MPO, we just ask that you document that you're working with your local, state, federal, and local governments, county governments, councils, whatever the municipality setup is where you are, to ensure that someone else is aware that you are active in providing services in their region. Section 3 is everybody's favorite, the vehicles section. We tried to cut a lot out of this one. Kelly Brocksterman and I worked on updating the estimated vehicle costs here. So the numbers that you see are the most updated current estimates that we have. You'll see you can identify the vehicle that you're asking for, and we have an estimated unit cost for you to start budgeting with. Additionally, there's a second page that has modifications that you could potentially have on your 14s and 20s. One of the new ones that we added this year is the last one in this list, bike racks. Bike racks are now eligible expenses, but not required for vehicles. If you'd like to have a bike rack installed on one of your vehicles, just contact Kelly Brocksterman and she can work with you to get an estimated unit cost for the vehicle type and amount of bike racks that you're requesting. After that, we just ask for what kind of service you are, or is it a new starts, is it an additional fleet? And then finally, the inventory. If you have an inventory that lists all these things out, please don't refill this chart out. Please just send me a PDF of your inventory, and that will be enough for us to get through the year. It seems silly to recreate something if you have it in an Excel chart already. But if you don't, here's your template, and you can fill it out. All the categories are pretty self-explanatory, and we put an example in on that first line. So if you have any questions further than that, please give me a call or an email, and I'd be happy to walk you through it. Section 4 is the certification section, and what we did here is just put all of the items that require someone to sign and certify for your agency in this section. So you'll most likely just take this to your board of directors or your executive director, however you're set up, and have them fill out this section. It's all the signatures, all the assurances have been put together, and we just wanted to make it easier for you guys than having each one individually. One item that we'd like to point out is the activity of your CTD. We want to make sure everybody is not only a member, but a member in good standing, which, based on which CTD you're in, may include attendance at your CTD meetings. Some of you have dues. Are the dues current? Items like that. We want to make sure that because the CTDs are something that was created through legislation and not necessarily a KDOT requirement, that you are not only existing, but working together, active, and consistently coordinating the regional transportation in your area. Now, as I said, sections 5, 6, and 7 don't apply to everyone. So here we have section 5, other equipment inventory, and this only applies to you 11s and 39s out there. We're asking you to make an inventory of not only your vehicles, which you've already handed in, but also other things, radios, large ticket capital items. The chart again is pretty self-explanatory, and if you already have an inventory, you are welcome to PDF a copy of that instead. Section 6 is a required if applicable list. We just tried to put together a checklist of things that you may or may not need, depending on which program you're in. As you read through it, you'll know which ones apply to you. So things like auditor's report, articles of incorporation. If you're in an MPO area, you need to get a letter to them stating you're requesting funds. You'll need a letter of good standing from your CTD administrator, copies of support, public notices for those of you requesting capital, letters of certification for your local source match, things like this. They don't apply to everyone, but you'll know if your program does require them. If you have any questions whether or not yours does, please call or email one of us and we'd be happy to help you out. And finally, number 7 is just overall checklist we put together. We're just trying to make sure that you've thought of everything and everything's included in your packet before you send it over. Making sure all your signatures have been attained, your articles of incorporation or a letter from the Secretary of State, a map of your service area. These are all the same things we asked you for last year, so nothing new here. Just wanted to give you like one more chance to think about making sure that your application is as complete as possible. So that's the end of it. We're hoping it's a lot easier for you to fill out your applications this year, and in turn, it'll be a lot faster for us to get the awards announced in the coming months. If you have any questions, like I said, please contact one of us. We'd be happy to help you out by phone or email, or come out if we need to and walk you through the process. And I wish you all very good luck in your applications. I'm going to hand it back over to Corey now.
All right, now that Mike's run you through the application process through Black Cat, I want to talk about what we do at KDOT after we receive your application. And that's what we refer to as our review process. Our initial review is a completeness review to confirm that you have signed all your certifications. You include everything you needed in your application for us to do a complete review. That's done by our staff here, and it's actually a process in Black Cat. So before your application is complete in Black Cat, we cannot move it forward to our next phase, which is our past performance review. So we look at 3 years of data. We look at what you've requested. We look at what has been allocated to you by our agency, and we look to see how much you've spent. Ultimately, this gives us an opportunity to identify the most effective way to administer the funds that are made available. We've had issues in the past where we have people consistently requesting large amounts of dollars and leaving large amounts of dollars on the table. So we want to make sure we're getting as close to the actual budget as possible. If we do see a large increase in the request, we typically go into what we call planning review. We want to understand why your increase is happening. Whether it be service expansion, an additional vehicle, or just additional operation costs due to driver wages. We really want to look into the details and understand why it is an agency is asking for an additional amount of funds. If it is a service expansion, we take some time to look into that proposed expansion and make sure it fits within our business model and fits within the region. So we've taken a really in-depth view of applications that are requesting an increase in dollars or that are expanding their service. Something I didn't mention during our past performance review is something we call a right sizing of a budget. If we do see over the past 4 years a certain agency has consistently been asking for, we'll just throw out a number, $50,000, but they're only spending $25,000 annually. We want to do what we call right sizing that budget. We want to bring that dollar amount down to what their typical annual expenditures are. A lot of agencies look at this as somewhat of a budget cut. It's not that. It is a right sizing of your budget. It's allocating the dollars necessary to operate your system for that year. So that's something, as if you are an agency that has continually been leaving money on the table, that is something that may occur in the future as we go through the application process. I've already discussed the planning review. We also have vehicle review. We go through an entire peer review process for all of our vehicle requests. We have a representative from each CTD come in and go through our scoring criteria to provide a score on each application's vehicle request. We utilize that information. We utilize vehicle condition, past performance on maintenance, and overall fleet management to understand the need for each agency's requesting vehicle, and we determine whether or not to approve that request as a part of that review. Vehicles must be more than 5 years old or 100,000 miles at the time of application to be eligible for replacement. Having said that, we do have opportunities outside of those range of numbers to make vehicles available if there is justifiable explanation due to having to spend a lot of money on maintenance for that vehicle. So if it is a problem vehicle and you're spending more on maintenance than you would be to replace it, we do have an opportunity outside of that 5 years, 100,000 miles, to look at that, and there is an opportunity in the application to justify that. We are seeing agencies with the ability to maintain their vehicles properly and getting them to 150, 175,000, 200,000 miles. So we like to see agencies continue to maintain their vehicles properly and get them to that higher mileage mark and get the full usage out of them. And that's something we'll see in our transit asset management plan is opportunities to continue to maintain our assets and opportunities to identify how we're going to allocate funding moving forward based on our fleet management and vehicle condition, mileage, and year. So I want to break down our timeline for funding and our timeline for review. We do have our completeness review, which is going to happen in early December, probably late November, early December. And then we'll have to go into our peer review, which is in January, February. And then the entire time when that's going on, we have our KDOT review of operating budgets, vehicle request, and the planning review I mentioned. It's our goal to have initial recommendations from staff in the middle of February, and then we'll be making some final decisions around that timeline as well. And we want to announce awards no later than late February this year, as we have additional requirements to get these things pushed through faster. So you will be seeing this timeline moved up a little bit this year as we have additional reporting requirements we need to take care of at the federal level. Like I said earlier, at the workshops that we've held, there's been a question and answer session. I encourage you, if you have questions about anything we talked about today, whether it's our review, whether it's the application process, to contact Mike Spatafor or Scott Lean or myself at our office, and we can either help walk you through the process of the application or discuss anything about any of our programs. So please contact us and we can help you get through that process. And I want to thank you for joining us today here on this webinar. And if, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you.